Alright, you little shit, we're out of time. Have you finished work on the engine yet?
Well, no. I'm still repairing the core systems. All we do now by turning it on is blowing up the ship.
Damn it all. Alright, I'll lead them to the embarkation deck. You get this damn engine finished. Come on! Come on! Phew! Should be set for at least 10 minutes, until they figure out I'm here. Might as well get on with this. What's up, you filthy heretics? How you doing? My name is Asmogan, and today we'll be talking about the Rage Meister, the Spite Czar, and simply the angriest motherfucker to ever grace the pages of 40K lore. Yes, of course, today we are covering me after the Warhammer Adventures was announced. Okay, fine, we'll talk about Angron, the Primarch of the World Eaters. So, without further ado, on with the lore dump. As with all Primarchs, Angron got yeeted out of the Emperor's lab on Terra by the Chaos Gods. After whirring through the warp, he got flopped out onto the planet of Nuceria, located much further from Terra than the likes of Baal or Fenris, being later on one of the latter half of the Primarchs found by the Emperor. Nuceria was what Imperial records describe as a civilized world, which is a planet that is allowed to develop naturally as it is already at a comparable technological level to that of the Greater Imperium. Thus, there is no major industrial effort required to modernize it, nor is there need to supply it with necessities as it is self-sustaining in that regard. In Nuceria's specific case, the world was very well developed technologically speaking, with a ruling elite of nobles living in affluence and ruling over the common populace, who lived in poverty and destitution, very akin to the late Roman Empire. Speaking of which, the nobility instituted gladiatorial arenas to entertain the masses and distract them from their poverty and suffering. Circling back, Angron crash-landed in the wilderness of Nuceria, and grew for a short while in the wilderness. However, he was assailed by Eldari, which he summarily ripped apart, but not without injuries to show for it. The Eldar attempted to kill Angron due to their foreknowledge of the disasters Angron would help forge. At least this is believed to be the case. It is not definitive what species it was that tried to off his ass in the wilds of Nuceria. Just after the altercation with the Eldari, a human slaver who had been traveling through the area chanced upon the injured Primarch and, due to him being incapacitated, took him as a slave and sold him to the nobility. The nobles, recognizing his sheer size and ferocity, sold Angron to the arenas to become a gladiator. Being a Primarch and all, he shot up in size and brawn exceedingly fast, which came in handy as he was thrown into the throngs of battle as soon as money exchanged hands between the nobles and the arena masters. Now, the arena masters couldn't have a champion gladiator without a name, now could they? Marketing and all? The crowds needed something to cheer, or to jeer, depending on their mood. Therefore, he was christened Angron Thal'kyr, which meant Child of the Mountain in Old Nucerian. It took no time at all for Angron to become one of the greatest gladiators on Nuceria, winning bout after bout. The crowds came to call him the Lord of the Red Sands, as Angron showed great respect, nobility, and restraint in the arena, often sparing opponents who fought well and showed respectable strength or resilience. Despite the adulation of the crowd, Angron resented his life as a slave, as anyone would, and regularly attempted to escape his captivity. Each attempt failed, however, and he would always be returned before the next match. During this time as well, an older gladiator by the name of Oenemaus became a father figure to Angron, often teaming up with him in the arena and defeating many foes side by side, including 2 Ogryn enhanced by a cybernetic implant. These cybernetic implants were called the Butcher's Nails. After their victory against such foes, the nobles noted how formidable both Angron and Oenemaus were, and deemed the next match to be between the two of them, the father and the son. Angron, in a fit of defiance, refused outright to fight Oenemaus, and derided the nobles publicly. As punishment, and as a dark incentive to fight, the nobles had the Butcher's Nails implanted into his skull. Now this warrants an explanation, so here it goes. The Butcher's Nails are a set of cybernetic cortical implants from the Dark Age of technology, which absurdly enhance a given subject's adrenaline levels, resulting in greater feats of strength and inhuman levels of aggression. As a side effect, they release an electrochemical signal to the brain, causing pleasure sensations with every spurt of rage. and they implanted so many of them that Angron looks like he has metal dreadlocks. Keep in mind, each of these is a separate butcher's nail. Each of them multiplied the effects I just mentioned an additional level. So it goes without saying, Angron and his father figure faced off in the arena, and, well, to use the term faced off would be grossly incorrect. More like Angron was unleashed upon Oenomouse, who he quickly tore apart. Literally. After the carnage settled and Angron realized what he had done to the man he saw as a father, it is said he fell into such a deep despair that he let out a howl of loss that lasted an entire day. Angron vowed vengeance on the nobility and began training the other gladiators as his warriors, honing them to become ever more deadlier as to aid him in his quest for vengeance and freedom. Each of them had also been implanted with the butcher's nails, which better facilitated their mutual rapport. After some time had passed, Angron successfully convinced the arena masters to orchestrate a vast melee, including all of the other gladiators possessed of butcher's nails, and used the opportunity to attack the guards overseeing them before the match. The gladiators fought hard to make it to the streets of the Nucerian capital, with only 2,000 surviving out of the horde. The escapees collected what supplies they could and fled into the wilds. Over the preceding few years, the escaped gladiators would be hunted relentlessly by the nobles' forces. However, Angron and his gladiators, then rechristened the Eaters of Cities, reaved the hunting parties each time they came close. However, this was not a war of brawn, but one of attrition. The lack of proper food, supplies, and rest resulted in their number dwindling to less than 1,000. Now real quick, let's reverse the clock a few months. Sensing Angron's distressed presence, Emps found Nuceria and began secretly observing his lost son from orbit. Yes, you heard me right. Months before Angron and his forces' numbers were whittled down to less than 1,000 fighters, Emps was just chilling in orbit with a tub of popcorn and enjoying the show. God, the Emps could really be the worst dad in all of fiction. The Nucerian forces mustered 7 whole armies around the area in the wilds Angron and his city eaters resided. They were cornered, outgunned, and outnumbered, vastly. Even a Primarch couldn't hope to make up for such a disparaging gap in circumstances. After finally growing bored of his reality TV show, Emps and his custodies flew down to Angron and asked him to join the Great Crusade, offering him his Legion of Astartes, then known as the Warhounds, the 12th Legion. To Emps' shock, Angron outright refused the offer point blank. This was because the Emperor only offered safety and security to Angron himself, and denied a place for his city eaters. Thus, not willing to leave them to die, as they had become his de facto family, Angron chose to stay with them, to die with them. Assumedly in stunned, rigid silence, the Emperor returned to his ship in orbit, flabbergasted, and observed as Angron and the City Eaters were overrun by Nucerian troops. They were being slaughtered. Not willing to lose a Primarch to such circumstances, Emps teleported Angron to his ship against his will, and only Angron. With their leader gone, the City Eaters' morale crumpled, and they were slaughtered in short order. Angron watched his adoptive family die from the Emperor's command ship, and demanded to know why, if Emps had the tech to teleport, had he not gotten them all out of there, and Emps just snorted and said he had grander visions for humanity than a bunch of former slaves being killed by backwater world nobles. Angron was then unceremoniously handed to the 12th Legion, and set upon the Great Crusade. At first, Angron refused to accept the Warhounds in any capacity, killing any officer of their number who dared to speak to him, until Khan, captain of the 8th Assault Company, went and spoke to Angron. The two clashed, and though it was entirely one-sided, Khan refused to surrender and fought back hard. This showed Angron that there was something in the Warhounds that made them worthy of him, and thus he took command of the 12th Legion, renaming them the World Eaters in honor of his fallen foster family, the Eaters of Cities. Understandably, Angron never forgave the Emperor's inaction to save his fellow gladiators. Thus, when Horus would later ask for his aid to rebel against the Emperor, Angron agreed without a hint of hesitation. There are many stories just before and during the Horus Heresy including Angron as a major player in the events which unfold. However, this is an appropriate summation of his origins. Thank you all so much for watching, hope you all enjoyed this episode, and if you did, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and remember, for the Imperium, my brothers.